They were painful praying.
Such a longing that God would come.
And God answered.
With nothing more to delay him, Jehovah drew near.
Something very significant had happened the previous night. There was something quite strange, almost eerie, in the atmosphere of the house.
We felt this power, and afterwards even the dishes were clattering. It was as if the Lord came down with a mighty wind. The house shook with the power of prayer and the presence of the Lord.
And people were afraid because this was a supernatural happening.
The Shekinah glory of God descended upon the community. A tangible supernatural light hovering around many of the farmhouses.
There was lights coming on houses. The glory of the Lord was just shining around about them. They were all stunned. They couldn't say a word. What could they say? Be still and know that I am God. That's all we said.
Around 4 o'clock in the morning, a crowd of several hundred people gathered outside the community police station. Many had traveled from neighboring villages, drawn by an incomprehensible power.
Walking on the main road, they would be crying to God to have mercy on them. They were lying down on the road for God to have mercy on them.
It was as if we were in eternity. Eternal issues, eternal things were very, very real to us.
A key figure in the unfolding revival was the Reverend Duncan Campbell, a fiery preacher with the United Free Church.
He would storm up and down the pulpit, the perspiration would run down his face.
Oh, my dear people, listen, the secret of the Lord is with them that fear him.
The meeting halls were packed.
Just as many unbelievers came, many all over the island they were coming.
The church was crowded to capacity. People sat in the windows.
Just as many outside. Oh yes, just as many outside.
You can make a community crusade conscious, the fiery revivalist would say, but only God can make a community God conscious.
You see, the presence of God puts to flight program. Not an evangelist, not a special effort, not anything at all organized on the basis of human endeavor, but an awareness of God that gripped the whole community.
Soon the moving of God's Spirit was felt on other islands, including Harris, Bernera, and Tyree. But it was the revival on North Uist that Jean Blanchard remembers best. The year was 1957.
There was an awareness of God's power working throughout the island.
People were being saved every night. Lives were being transformed.
We could only say, God came down.
As news of the revival spread, several reporters showed up on the island around Christmas time. Upon arriving at their hotel, they were promptly escorted into the bar by the local proprietor.
Look, he said, all this alcohol is here. He said, the people are not coming. They're going to the meetings. The revival meetings had just spoiled their sales.
Similar complaints were heard all over the islands.
Lifestyle was starved, there's no doubt about that. The drinking houses of the village, they gradually disappeared one by one with the power of the revival. It affected the whole community.
You couldn't be indifferent to what was happening. It was as if there was a canopy of an awareness of God over the whole island. There was a complete transformation. And the people in the world knew it. God had come. That was the answer.
Having observed God's willingness to transform discrete territories and cultures, only one question remains. Can this happen at a national level? Is there any evidence of God at work in a modern state, a sovereign nation? The East African nation of Uganda seems an unlikely place to look for answers. Racked with demonic fevers, this one-time pearl of Africa has spent decades in a deep spiritual coma. Its very name has become synonymous with death. As the nursery of AIDS, and as Idi Amin's personal house of horrors.
I think Uganda has been a country of pain. a country which has gone through one military coup to another.
I know what it means to live in fear.
Pastor John Malindi was a teenager when the horror began.
People have been killed in thousands, massacres, whole villages being massacred. And sometimes you would not know exactly who is doing the killing.
Those who listen to John Malindi's vivid tales may squirm.
His body lay there for 2 days.
Or even weep.
And the baby had pulled out the breast of a dead mother.
But they will always remember.
We did not recognize what we were fighting against.
Uganda's history, like that of many African nations, is filled with magic practices and secret rituals. Fetishes known as Mayembe were everywhere. And kings, even to the days of Idi Amin, are known to have offered human sacrifices.
Africans are covenant people, if I may say. Much of what we have is covenanted to the devil.
Our history tells us that our ancestors worship other gods other than the God of Abraham.
For Uganda, the consequence of this idolatry has been a long season of fear and pain.
What I knew about Idi Amin was a towering figure with who wanted to throw around his weight and wanted his presence felt all over.
Journalist Mark Kuasa grew up under the shadow of Uganda's infamous tyrant. Like many of his countrymen, he was optimistic when Amin's overthrow led to the return of former President Milton Obote.
But they thought that maybe Obote would be better than Idi Amin, but it wasn't.
There were powers of darkness behind these people that you're looking at, which were tearing apart this nation. In those days, it was common to find bodies lying by the roadside, and sometimes people would go to look over just to make sure, is it a person I know, a loved one? If not, they would just go on.
And it wasn't just soldiers doing the killing.
I was born to die.
Pastor Jackson Sinyanga was just 3 months old when his mother threw him into the garbage.
And my grandma picked me up.
Assuming he would die within a matter of days, an aunt agreed to take him in. But the boy lived, if only to revisit the pain.
My father was murdered in '79 during Idi Amin. And at the funeral, that's when I first saw the picture of the face of my mother. Never a letter, never a picture, no nothing. And I was already a teenager.
Sadly, Jackson's father was part of a national epidemic.
1 day passed, 2 days without your loved one coming home. Then you know maybe he's dead. So the first place to go to would be Namave Forest. It was a forest of death. You could feel the spirit of death there, the heaviness of death.
Prayer meetings went underground. Pastors circulated between as many as 10 groups a day, always at great peril, and often arriving home in the wee hours.
The soldiers had power to do whatever they want. There would be road checks.